Dina Harrison felt her hands trembling as she adjusted the crimson veil for the last time in the bridal suite. In a few minutes, she would walk toward the altar of Sacred Heart Church in the heart of the city to marry Rudolph Chen, the man she had loved for 3 years. She clutched a handwritten letter in her hands, sealed with red wax, containing private vows too intimate for the public ceremony. It was then that she decided to deliver it to him personally. Tessa, her maid of honor, warned her. "It's bad luck to see the groom before the ceremony. I just want one private moment with him," Dina insisted, smiling. "I'll be right back." She walked down the administrative hallway toward the groom's preparation room, her red dress flowing behind her like a river of silk. The pearl earrings caught the light. She felt beautiful, confident, ready to begin her new life. Then she heard voices around the corner near the storage area. The door was slightly open, and she instantly recognized Rudolph's distinctive laugh. Curious, she slowed her steps to listen. "We can't keep doing this, Rudy." Not on her wedding day. It was a woman's voice, familiar, urgent. Dina froze. That voice. She knew that voice. "Just one more kiss before I have to pretend for the cameras." Rudolph responded with a tone she had never heard before, cold, casual, dismissive. Dina felt the world tilting. She leaned against the wall, the letter slipping from her fingers. She forced herself to peer around the corner. There he was, Rudolph in his navy suit, and Wanda, her own sister, in her white bridesmaid dress. His hands on her waist, their lips pressed together in an embrace that spoke of familiarity, of repetition, of betrayal so deep it had no bottom. What if she finds out? Wanda giggled nervously, pulling back slightly. "She won't," Rudolph said, stroking her cheek. "Dina sees what she wants to see. She always has." The words stabbed like knives. Dina pressed her hand to her mouth to keep from gasping, from screaming, from making any sound that would reveal her presence. "How long do you think we can keep this up?" Wanda asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. "As long as we need to," Rudolph replied. "Today I marry her. Tonight we celebrate. Tomorrow we start our life together, and you and I will have to be more careful. But we'll find our moments. We always do." Wanda laughed softly. "You're terrible. She's my sister. And she's about to be my wife," Rudolph said. "Which makes this even more exciting, doesn't it?" Dina's legs trembled so badly she thought they would give out. 3 years of relationship. 3 years of planning their future. Every smile, every kiss, every "I love you" had been a performance. "We should get back," Wanda said, adjusting her dress. "The ceremony starts in 10 minutes. One more kiss," Rudolph insisted. Dina watched them embrace again, and something inside her shifted. The shock began to transform into something else, something colder, sharper, more focused. She managed to lift her phone with shaking hands and captured a photo. The click of the camera was silent. They didn't hear it. The footsteps moved away down the hallway. Dina stayed alone, listening only to the sound of her own heart beating without control and the wedding march starting to echo through the church. She looked at herself in the reflection of a nearby window. The crimson dress that cost thousands of dollars, chosen to symbolize passion and confidence. The delicate beading that caught every light. The veil that had taken weeks to design, all for a man who was kissing her own sister minutes before their wedding. Dina breathed deeply and wiped the tears that were starting to fall. No, she would not collapse. She would not give Rudolph Chen and Wanda Harrison the satisfaction. If they wanted to play games, she knew how to play too. Better than they ever imagined. Her phone vibrated. A message from Tessa. "Where are you? Everyone's waiting," Dina responded. "Coming now. Everything is perfect." She bent down, retrieved the fallen letter, and placed it carefully in a pocket of her dress. She adjusted her veil and her bouquet. She smiled at her reflection, rehearsing the expression she would use from now on. Did Rudolph want a radiant, trusting bride? That was exactly what he would get. But her reception surprise would be something neither he nor Wanda ever imagined. Dina emerged from the hallway and walked toward the ceremony space. The guests turned to admire her. Whispers of approval filled the environment. "She's stunning. That dress is incredible. She looks so happy." She greeted and smiled, performing to perfection the role of the bride in love. Before we continue with what happens next, if you're following Dina's journey, let us know where you're watching from. Drop a comment below and tell us, have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? Have you ever had to choose between staying silent or demanding the truth publicly? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this story is just getting started, and what Dina does next will leave you absolutely speechless. We share stories about the strength it takes to expose betrayal, the courage to reclaim your power, and the moments when justice is served in the most unforgettable ways. Comment red dress below if you believe people deserve to face the consequences of their actions. At the front, Rudolph waited for her by the altar. When their eyes met, he smiled in that way that used to make her melt. Now she knew that everything was theater, and she was about to become the better actor. Thomas Harrison, her father, waited to escort her down the aisle. At 58 years old, the successful surgeon had always protected his daughters, had always wanted the best for them. He had welcomed Rudolph into their family with open arms. "My beautiful girl," Thomas said, offering his arm. "You look absolutely radiant." "Thanks, Dad," Dina managed, taking his arm and trying to control her voice. As they walked down the aisle of the church, she observed the familiar faces on her side of the venue. Aunts, uncles, cousins, childhood friends who had watched her grow up. On Rudolph's side, far fewer people. His mother, Patricia, who had always seemed distant and cold. Some relatives and colleagues, Julian and Dylan, the groomsmen, stood near the altar trying to look normal. Rudolph continued smiling with that pose of excited groom. What a talented performer he was. When they arrived at the altar, Thomas kissed his daughter's forehead and placed her hand in Alexander's. "Take care of her," Thomas said, looking Rudolph directly in the eyes. "Always, sir. She's the love of my life," Rudolph responded, squeezing Dina's hand. If she didn't know the truth, she would have been moved. Now she felt only disgust and determination. Father O'Brien, who had known her family for decades, began the ceremony. "We are gathered here to celebrate the union of Dina and Rudolph," he said. "Marriage is a sacred institution based on love, respect, and honest commitment." Honest commitment. What a cruel joke. "Rudolph, do you take Dina as your lawfully wedded wife? Do you promise to love her and cherish her, in joy and in sorrow, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, all the days of your life?" "I do," Rudolph said, looking deeply into her eyes with perfect sincerity. "Dina, do you take Rudolph as your lawfully wedded husband? Do you promise to love him and cherish him, in joy and in sorrow, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, all the days of your life?" Dina paused for just a second. She felt all eyes upon her. Rudolph squeezed her hand, and she noticed the slight tension behind his smile. "I do," she responded, and saw the relief wash over his face. "Before we proceed with the exchange of rings," Father O'Brien announced, "the couple has prepared personal vows." Dina had written hers weeks ago, when she still believed in their future. Now they would serve a different purpose entirely. Rudolph began first. "Dina, from the moment I met you, I knew my life had changed forever. You brought light, joy, and meaning to my days. I promise to be the husband you deserve, to cherish you, and to build our future together with all the love in my heart." Some guests wiped tears. Dina smiled, but inside she thought, how does he lie with such ease? Now it was her turn. "Rudolph, our relationship has taught me so much about trust, about opening my heart completely to someone. Today, here in front of our family and friends, I want you to know that I see you truly. I understand your dreams, your desires, your true intentions, and I promise to stand beside you through whatever challenges we face together or apart." She noticed Tessa glancing at her sharply. Rudolph squeezed her hand again, and she felt it was slightly sweaty. "Now we will proceed to the exchange of rings," Father O'Brien said. Rudolph took her ring and slid it onto her finger. "With this ring, I wed you and promise to love you forever." Dina did the same, sliding the band onto his finger with steady hands. "With this ring, I wed you and promise to love you forever." The ring felt mechanical and cold, a golden shackle, not a symbol of love. But she smiled brilliantly as Father O'Brien pronounced them husband and wife. "You may kiss the bride." Rudolph leaned in, his lips meeting hers. The guests erupted in applause. Dina forced herself not to recoil, to lean into the kiss as a radiant bride should. When they pulled apart, Rudolph whispered in her ear, "I love you so much." She whispered back, "I know exactly who you are." He smiled, not catching the meaning. And as they turned to face their guests as husband and wife for the first time, Dina's mind was already working, calculating, planning, preparing the reception surprise that would change everything. Dina stood before the full-length mirror in the bridal suite, watching as Tessa fastened the final pearl earring. The crimson dress fit perfectly, the delicate beading catching the afternoon light streaming through the stained glass windows of Sacred Heart Church. She looked like a bride from a fairy tale, bold, confident, unforgettable. Red lipstick or nude? Tessa asked, holding up both options. Red, Dina said without hesitation. I want to match the dress. Tessa applied the color with practiced precision, then stepped back to admire her work. You look absolutely stunning, Dee. Rudolph is going to lose his mind when he sees you. Dina smiled, reaching for the handwritten letter on the vanity table. The wax seal gleamed crimson, matching everything else about this day. Inside were her private vows, words too intimate, too vulnerable for the public ceremony. She wanted Rudolph to read them alone, to know the depth of her love before they stood at the altar. I'm going to take this to him, she announced, clutching the envelope. Tessa's eyes widened. Are you crazy? You can't see the groom before the ceremony. It's terrible luck. I don't believe in superstitions. Dina laughed. I just want one private moment with him. 5 minutes. I'll be right back. Before Tessa could protest further, Dina slipped out the door, her dress whispering against the polished floors as she navigated the administrative hallway. The church was a maze of corridors, but she knew exactly where the groom's preparation room was located. She was nearly there when she heard voices around the corner near the storage area. Rudolph's laugh distinctive, confident, the sound that used to make her heart race. She slowed her steps, curious. Then she heard the second voice. Female. Familiar in a way that made her stomach clench. We can't keep doing this, Rudy. Not on her wedding day. Dina's breath caught. That was Wanda's voice. Her sister's voice. Just one more kiss before I have to pretend for the cameras, Rudolph responded, his tone playful, intimate. The letter slipped from Dina's trembling fingers, landing silently on the carpet. She forced herself to move forward, to peer around the corner, praying she had misheard, misunderstood. But there was no misunderstanding what she saw. Rudolph in his perfectly tailored navy suit, Wanda in her white bridesmaid dress, his hands gripping her waist, their lips locked together in a kiss that spoke of practice, of repetition, of 1,000 stolen moments just like this one. Time seemed to fracture and slow. Dina couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what her eyes were showing her. Wanda pulled back slightly, giggling. What if she finds out? Rudolph stroked her cheek with sickening tenderness. She won't. Dina sees what she wants to see. She always has. The words landed like physical blows. Dina's vision blurred with tears. But some survival instinct kicked in. Her hands shaking violently, she managed to raise her phone and capture a photo. The soft click was inaudible beneath their whispered conversation. She backed away before they could discover her, moving on autopilot down the hallway. The letter lay forgotten on the floor, those intimate words, those vulnerable confessions, meant for a man who had been playing her for a fool. When she stumbled back into the bridal suite, Tessa took one look at her face and rushed forward. Dee, what happened? You look like you've seen a ghost. Dina couldn't form words. Her entire body was shaking. She thrust her phone toward Tessa with trembling hands. Tessa looked at the screen, and her expression transformed from confusion to horror to rage in seconds. Oh my God, Dina. That's Wanda. And Rudolph. We're calling this off right now. We're canceling everything. But as Tessa reached for her own phone, something shifted in Dina's expression. The tears stopped flowing. Her jaw set with sudden determination. She walked to the mirror, grabbed a tissue, and carefully wiped away the smeared mascara. No, she said quietly. We're not. What? Dina, you can't be serious. We're not calling anything off. Dina's voice was steady now, cold as ice. She reapplied her red lipstick with precise strokes. I'm walking down that aisle. I'm saying my vows. And then I'm going to make sure every single person in that church knows exactly who Rudolph Chen and Wanda Harrison really are. Tessa stared at her best friend, watching the transformation happen in real time. Shock giving way to devastation. Devastation crystallizing into something harder, sharper, more dangerous. Cold determination. You can't marry him knowing this. Tessa grabbed Dina's shoulders, forcing her to make eye contact. We'll make an announcement. We'll tell everyone there's been an emergency. We'll get you out of here right now. And then what? Dina's voice was eerily calm as she adjusted her veil. Rudolph walks away without consequences? Wanda pretends this never happened? Everyone asks questions but never gets answers. She shook her head slowly. No, that's not how this ends. Dina, you're in shock. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in 3 years. Dina turned to face her friend fully. I'm not going to marry him, Tessa. Not really, but I am going to walk down that aisle, and I'm going to make sure everyone, every single guest, every family member, every one of Rudolph's business partners, knows exactly who he is. Tessa studied her best friend's face, recognizing the expression. It was the same look Dina got during final exams in college. The same focus she brought to impossible design deadlines. She wasn't broken. She was calculating. We have 10 minutes, Tessa said, her tone shifting from comforting friend to strategic ally. Years of PR work had taught her how to manage crises. If you're serious about this, we need a plan, a real one. The reception, Dina said immediately. We expose them at the reception, in front of everyone. We'll need more evidence than just your photo. His lawyers could claim it was a farewell hug, a moment of comfort, anything. Tessa's mind was already racing. We need something undeniable. Dina's eyes widened. The church has security cameras. I've seen them in the hallways. Can we access the footage? I don't know, but... Dina paused, thinking rapidly. Marcus, the photographer. He might be able to help. Marcus Chen? He's already here setting up. Tessa grabbed her phone. I'll get him. You fix your makeup. You need to look perfect when you walk down that aisle. 2 minutes later, Marcus appeared at the bridal suite door, camera still hanging around his neck. He was a friend of Tessa's from her college photography club. Talented and discreet, exactly why Dina had hired him. Tessa said it's urgent? He looked confused, glancing between the two women. Dina showed him the photo without preamble. Did you see anything like this today? Marcus's expression darkened immediately. This morning, early, around 9, I saw them arrive together, which I thought was weird since they're not supposed to see each other before the ceremony. Then they kept disappearing, the groom and the bridesmaid. I saw them near the storage rooms twice. I thought maybe they were coordinating some surprise for you. They were coordinating something, Dina said bitterly. The church has security cameras. Can you get the footage? The administrator, Mrs. Patterson, is in her office. She knows me from setting up earlier. Marcus was already thinking it through. I could say we want the footage for a behind-the-scenes wedding video. Offer a donation to the church. Do it, Tessa said. Fast. The ceremony starts in 7 minutes. Marcus nodded and disappeared. Dina turned back to the mirror, touching up her lipstick with steady hands. The shock was fading, replaced by something colder, more focused. She felt strangely calm, as if she were floating above her body, watching herself prepare for the performance of a lifetime. You're sure about this? Tessa asked quietly. Completely. Dina adjusted her veil one final time. Rudolph wants a passionate, trusting bride? That's exactly what he'll get, right up until the moment I destroy him. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. That helps us tremendously. Now, let's continue. The wedding march began to play in the distance. Guests would be standing, turning toward the doors, waiting to see the bride in her crimson dress. Tessa squeezed her hand. Then let's give them a show they'll never forget. Dina picked up her bouquet of white roses, the same flowers Rudolph had kissed Wanda over. She smiled at her reflection, not the soft, romantic smile she'd practiced, but something sharper, more dangerous. Performance mode, activated. They had 7 hours until the reception. 7 hours to gather evidence, to document everything, to plan the exposure that would ensure Rudolph Chen and Wanda Harrison never forgot this day. 7 hours until revenge. The church doors opened to the soaring notes of the string quartet. 200 guests rose to their feet, turning to watch the bride's entrance. Dina's father, Thomas, stood beside her in the vestibule, resplendent in his formal suit, his eyes glistening with emotion. You look absolutely radiant, sweetheart, he whispered, offering his arm. I'm so proud of you. Dina took his arm, fighting back tears that had nothing to do with joy. Her father had no idea he was about to walk his daughter toward a man who had betrayed her with her own sister. The weight of that knowledge felt crushing. They began the long walk down the aisle. Every step felt surreal, as if she were watching herself from a distance. The faces of aunts, uncles, cousins blurred together. She kept her eyes fixed on the altar, where Rudolph waited. He looked genuinely emotional, his eyes shining as he watched her approach. Was it real? Or was he that good an actor? Beside him stood his groomsmen friends who had probably known nothing, or perhaps had known everything. Then her eyes found Wanda among the bridesmaids. Her sister stood in the white dress, bouquet held perfectly, face carefully composed. Unreadable. Did she feel guilt in this moment? Triumph? Or absolutely nothing at all? Father O'Brien smiled warmly as Thomas placed Dina's hand in Rudolph's. "Take care of my girl," Thomas said, his voice thick with emotion. "Always, sir, I promise," Rudolph replied, squeezing Dina's hand. The priest began. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the sacred union of Dina and Rudolph. Marriage is built on the foundation of love, fidelity, and trust between two people." Each word landed like a blade. Love, fidelity, trust. The very things Rudolph had destroyed. "Rudolph," Father O'Brien continued, "please share your vows." Rudolph turned to face her fully, taking both her hands. "Dina, from the moment we met, you changed everything. You made me believe in true love, in partnership, in building a life with someone who sees the best in me. I promise to honor you, to cherish you, and to be worthy of the trust you've placed in me every single day for the rest of our lives." Some guests dabbed at their eyes. Dina almost laughed or screamed. Instead, she smiled softly, as a bride in love should. "Dina, your vows," the priest prompted. She had written them 3 weeks ago. Now they served a different purpose entirely. "Rudolph, our relationship has taught me so much about seeing people clearly, about understanding who someone truly is beneath the surface. Today, I promise to show you the truth of who I am, and to always reveal the truth of who you are. I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes, and to make sure we both get exactly what we deserve." Tessa, standing behind her, recognized every carefully chosen word. Several guests smiled, thinking it poetic. Rudolph squeezed her hands, oblivious to the warning hidden in plain sight. "The rings, please," Father O'Brien said. Rudolph slid the diamond band onto her finger with practiced smoothness. "With this ring, I promise you my heart forever." The metal felt cold, like a shackle locking into place. Dina placed his ring on his finger with steady hands. "With this ring, I bind myself to you completely. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Father O'Brien beamed. "You may kiss your bride." Rudolph pulled her close, his lips meeting hers. The guests erupted in applause. Dina forced herself to lean into the kiss, to play the role of the passionate bride, even as revulsion coursed through her. When they pulled apart, Rudolph whispered, "I love you so much," she whispered back. "I know everything." But he didn't hear it over the applause, or perhaps he simply didn't understand. The wedding party photos outside took nearly an hour. Dina smiled brilliantly for every shot, laughing on cue, gazing adoringly at Rudolph when directed. Marcus worked efficiently, but she noticed him deliberately positioning shots to capture Rudolph and Wanda together. There, a lingering look between them when they thought no one was watching. There, Wanda adjusting Rudolph's boutonniere with 2 familiar hands. There, Rudolph's fingers brushing Wanda's back as they repositioned for a group photo. Small moments that betrayed everything. Marcus captured them all. Wanda clapped along with the other bridesmaids, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. When their gazes met, Dina held it for a long moment, letting her sister see something cold and knowing in her expression. Wanda looked away first. During cocktail hour at the church courtyard, Marcus found Dina near the fountain, champagne glass in hand, playing the radiant bride for a cluster of distant relatives. He caught her eye and gave a subtle nod toward the garden entrance. She excused herself gracefully and met him behind a row of hedges, away from prying eyes. "I got it," Marcus said quietly, patting his camera bag. "Everything. Show me." He pulled out his laptop, angling the screen away from the courtyard. "Mrs. Patterson, the church administrator, was incredibly helpful once I mentioned we wanted behind-the-scenes footage for a wedding video. I made a generous donation to the church's restoration fund." The first clip made Dina's stomach turn. Timestamp: 9 a.m. Rudolph and Wanda arriving at the church together, 2 hours before anyone else was scheduled to be there. They glanced around before entering through a side door, Rudolph's hand on the small of Wanda's back. "There's more," Marcus said, clicking to the next file. 9:15 a.m. Rudolph and Wanda entering a storage room near the administrative offices. The door closing behind them. 10 a.m. Them emerging. Wanda adjusting her dress, smoothing her hair, Rudolph checking the hallway before they separated. 12:30 p.m. The same hallway where Dina had discovered them. The kiss she'd witnessed, now captured from a different angle by the security camera mounted in the corner. Rudolph's hands in Wanda's hair, her arms around his neck. Nothing ambiguous. Nothing deniable. Mrs. Patterson asked why I needed footage from so early in the morning, Marcus said carefully. When I showed her the timestamps, explained what had happened, he paused. She was furious, said, and I quote, "In the house of God, on a wedding day." She handed over everything without hesitation, even burned it onto a flash drive for us. Dina felt something cold and sharp settling in her chest. Send me copies of everything. And keep backups. Already done. Marcus squeezed her shoulder. I'm so sorry, Dina. She nodded, unable to speak, and watched him slip back toward the cocktail reception. Across the courtyard, Tessa was working her own angle. Dina watched her friend moving through clusters of guests with practiced ease, asking casual questions, listening intently to responses. 20 minutes later, Tessa appeared at Dina's side with a fresh champagne glass and fury in her eyes. Your cousin Gabriella just told me something, Tessa said quietly. Last night at the rehearsal dinner, she saw Rudolph and Wanda leave together. They were gone for nearly an hour. She thought maybe they were coordinating some surprise for you. Dina's grip tightened on her glass. What else? Multiple people noticed weird dynamics. Wanda always finding excuses to be near Rudolph, touching his arm during conversations, laughing too hard at his jokes. Tessa's jaw clenched. How long has this been going on? Before Dina could answer, her mother Elena appeared, looking troubled. She pulled Dina slightly away from the crowd. Darling, I hate to mention this now today of all days, but I have to say something. Elena's voice was low, concerned. Wanda seemed very interested in Rudolph during the ceremony. The way she was looking at him. Did you notice? The irony hit Dina like a physical blow. Her mother had seen it, had noticed something wrong, but hadn't wanted to ruin the wedding day. I noticed, Mom, Dina said carefully. I'm probably being silly. Wedding day jitters making me see things that aren't there. Elena forced a smile. You look beautiful, sweetheart. Are you happy? I'm about to be, Dina said, and the double meaning was lost on her mother. As Elena moved away to greet other guests, Tessa leaned close. We have everything we need. Multiple witnesses, security footage, your photo. It's airtight. Dina scanned the courtyard. Rudolph held court near the bar, telling some story that had his groomsmen laughing. Wanda stood with the other bridesmaids, sipping champagne, looking perfectly innocent in her white dress. They had no idea what was coming. The scope of the betrayal kept expanding not just today, but last night, this morning, probably weeks or months before that. Every family dinner where Wanda had sat across from Rudolph, every planning session where she'd helped choose flowers and music, every moment had been contaminated by their lies. The horror of it should have broken her. Instead, it crystallized into something harder. Righteous anger, pure and focused. The reception starts in 30 minutes, Dina said quietly. Make sure Marcus has that slideshow ready. The Rosewood Estate ballroom glittered like something from a dream. 200 guests filled the space beneath crystal chandeliers that cast prismatic light across elegant gold and ivory decor. White roses and orchids cascaded from towering centerpieces. The room hummed with conversation and anticipation. The DJ's voice boomed through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever, please welcome Mr. and Mrs. Rudolph Chen. The doors burst open. Dina and Rudolph entered hand in hand to thunderous applause. She smiled brilliantly, waving to guests, playing her role to perfection. Rudolph pulled her close, kissing her temple as cameras flashed. The perfect couple, the perfect moment. If only they knew. The opening notes of At Last by Etta James filled the ballroom. Their first dance. Rudolph led her onto the floor, pulling her into his arms as guests formed a circle around them. This is perfect, he whispered against her ear as they swayed. You're perfect. I'm the luckiest man alive. Yes, you are, Dina whispered back, her voice carrying an edge he was too self-satisfied to catch. His hand pressed against her back, guiding her through turns she'd practiced 100 times. She rested her head against his shoulder, the picture of marital bliss. while her mind counted down the minutes until everything changed. The parent dances followed. Thomas took Dina's hand, and she fought tears as her father held her, this brilliant surgeon, who had always protected his daughters, who had worked impossible hours to give them every advantage. In an hour, his heart would break. The daughter he'd cherished had been betrayed by the man he'd welcomed as a son, and by his other daughter. The knowledge sat heavy in her chest. "You've made me so proud," Thomas said softly. "I hope Rudolph knows how lucky he is." "He will soon, Dad," she replied. "I promise." Across the floor, Rudolph danced with his mother, Patricia, who had always regarded Dina with cool politeness that never quite became warmth. Dina watched them, wondering if Patricia had known, if she'd seen her son's true nature and simply chosen to look away. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. That helps us tremendously. Now, let's continue. Dinner service began with military precision. Filet mignon, perfectly cooked, roasted vegetables glistening with herb butter, champagne flowing freely as guests settled in for the celebration. The clinking of silverware and laughter created a symphony of normalcy that would soon shatter. Cameron, the best man, stood first for toasts. He told amusing stories about Rudolph's bachelor days, about bar hopping and sports games, about the moment Rudolph had told him he'd found the one who could finally tame him. Guests laughed on cue. Rudolph grinned, soaking in the attention. Tessa rose next, glass in hand, and the room quieted. "I've known Dina since college," she began, her voice steady and clear. "And in all those years, I've watched her give her whole heart to the people she loves. Her loyalty is unmatched. Her capacity for love is extraordinary. Her strength, especially her strength, is something most people never get to see." She paused, looking directly at Dina. "But they will. Tonight, you're all going to witness exactly how strong she is. To Dina, may you always get the truth you deserve." Several guests wiped their eyes, moved by the emotional speech. Only Dina and Marcus understood the subtext. Then Wanda stood, visibly nervous, her champagne glass trembling slightly in her hand. The room's attention shifted to her. She cleared her throat. "To my sister," Wanda said, her voice hollow and rehearsed. "To her happiness. May you both," her eyes flickered to Rudolph, then back to Dina, "get exactly what you deserve." The room applauded politely. Dina raised her glass, meeting her sister's gaze across the space between them, letting Wanda see something cold and knowing in her expression. Wanda sat down quickly, reaching for her water glass. Dina caught Tessa's eye. Tessa gave an almost imperceptible nod toward Marcus, who was adjusting his laptop near the AV station. It was almost time. Dina rose from her seat as dessert plates were being cleared, tapping her champagne glass with a fork. The crystal chime silenced the room. All eyes turned toward the head table. "Thank you all so much for being here to celebrate with us," she began, her voice warm and steady. "Rudolph and I are so grateful to share this day with the people we love most. I have a special surprise prepared, something I've been working on for weeks, a journey through our love story." She gestured toward the large projector screen descending from the ceiling. "I hope you'll indulge us in a few minutes of nostalgia." Guests murmured approvingly, settling back with their champagne. Rudolph looked surprised but pleased, squeezing her hand as the lights dimmed. "You didn't have to do this," he whispered. "Oh, I absolutely did," she whispered back. The opening image appeared Dina and Rudolph at a cafe, their first official date. Soft piano music filled the room. The next photo showed them at a farmer's market, laughing over a bouquet of sunflowers. Then a beach sunset, Rudolph's arm around her shoulders. Guests smiled, some dabbing at their eyes. It was exactly the romantic montage they'd expected. More photos cycled through. A vacation in the mountains, Rudolph surprising her with flowers at work, their engagement on the beach at sunset. Rudolph on one knee, Dina's hands covering her mouth in shock. The engagement party, surrounded by family and friends. "This is beautiful," an aunt whispered somewhere in the darkness. The slideshow continued through wedding preparations. Dina and Rudolph touring this very venue, tasting cake samples, Rudolph helping her choose between floral arrangements, his arm always around her, his smile always perfect. Rudolph relaxed beside her, squeezing her hand. He was enjoying this tribute to their carefully constructed romance. Then the music stopped abruptly. A title card appeared in stark white text against a black background. "But every love story has another side." Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. Rudolph's hand tensed in hers. The next image appeared. Security camera footage. Timestamp visible. 9 a.m. Rudolph and Wanda entering Sacred Heart Church together, 2 hours before anyone else was scheduled to arrive. The image quality was grainy but unmistakable. The murmurs grew louder. "What is this?" someone asked. Next image. Timestamp 9:15 a.m. Rudolph and Wanda entering a storage room, his hand on her back. The room began to understand. A few gasps broke the silence. Next image. Timestamp 10 a.m. Rudolph and Wanda emerging from that same storage room. Wanda adjusting her dress. Rudolph checking the hallway. The silence was absolute now. 200 people holding their breath. Next image. Timestamp 12:30 p.m. The hallway near the administrative offices. Rudolph and Wanda kissing. His hands in her hair. Her arms around his neck. No ambiguity. No room for misinterpretation. "Oh my God," someone breathed. Another angle, different timestamp. Same hallway, same kiss. Another timestamp. 2:40 p.m. 20 minutes before the ceremony. Rudolph's hand dropped from Dina's like she'd burned him. He half stood from his chair. "Dina, what the hell?" The final image appeared. Not security footage this time, but the photo Dina had taken herself. Crystal clear. Rudolph and Wanda locked in an embrace, 15 minutes before the ceremony. Wanda's white bridesmaid dress, Rudolph's navy suit, their faces clearly visible. The room erupted. Gasps, shocked exclamations, the sound of a wine glass shattering on the floor. Dina remained perfectly still in her seat, watching the chaos unfold with cold satisfaction. The trap had sprung exactly as planned. Rudolph stood fully now, face flushed. "This is insane. You can't." At her table with the other bridesmaids, Wanda had gone completely white, frozen in her chair like a deer in headlights. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. That helps us tremendously. Now, let's continue. Dina rose slowly, deliberately, and walked to where the microphone stood. The room fell silent again. Every eye on the bride in the crimson dress. "I think," she said calmly, her voice amplified throughout the ballroom, "that everyone deserves to know the truth about who they're celebrating tonight." The ballroom exploded into chaos. Guests leapt to their feet, voices overlapping in shock and disbelief. A wine glass crashed to the floor, shattering into crystalline fragments that caught the light like falling stars. Rudolph lunged toward the microphone. "Dina, what the hell are you doing? This is your insane." Dina stepped smoothly away from him, keeping the microphone in her grip. Her voice remained steady, clear, amplified throughout the room. "I discovered Rudolph and my sister together 15 minutes before our ceremony. I watched them kiss. I heard them laugh about how naive I am. I chose to proceed with this wedding so that all of you, our family, our friends, his business partners, could witness the truth about who these people really are." The room fell silent again, hanging on her every word. "This marriage is over before it began," she continued. "But the evidence is now public record." Rudolph tried to grab the microphone from her hands. "This is insane. You're humiliating yourself." She stepped back, holding his gaze with ice in her eyes. "No, Rudolph, I'm humiliating you." All around them, guests had their phones out, recording from multiple angles. The modern age's version of public execution viral exposure in real time. Rudolph's face cycled through emotions: shock, rage, panic. He tried denial first. "Those cameras are wrong. That footage is manipulated." Murmurs of disbelief. No one was buying it. He switched tactics, pointing at Dina. "You drove me to this. You were always so busy with work. So distant." "I was distant?" Dina's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "I caught you with my sister 15 minutes before our wedding, Rudolph." Desperation crept into his voice. "It was just a few times. It didn't mean anything. We can work through this." "Just a few times?" Someone echoed incredulously. At the bridesmaids' table, Wanda finally moved, standing abruptly and heading for the exit. But Elena Harrison was faster, intercepting her daughter near the ballroom doors. "You stay right there," Elena said, her voice shaking with fury and grief. "You face what you've done." "Mom, please." Wanda's face was streaked with tears and ruined mascara. "How could you?" Elena's voice broke. "Your own sister. On her wedding day. You always loved her more. Wanda sobbed, the words spilling out like poison. Dina gets everything. The perfect career, the perfect life, the perfect... I loved you equally, Elena cut her off. Until you proved you weren't worthy of it. How long, Wanda? How long have you been doing this? Wanda couldn't answer, just stood there crying while guests recorded every moment. Across the room, Cameron approached Rudolph with something like horror on his face. Dude, I had no idea. If I'd known... You're taking her side? Rudolph turned on his best man desperately. You're supposed to be my friend. I'm supposed to be a decent human being, Cameron said quietly, stepping away. Thomas Harrison moved through the crowd with surgical precision, his face carved from stone. He stopped directly in front of Rudolph. You have 5 minutes to leave this venue, Thomas said, his voice deadly calm. Before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing. And if you ever contact my daughter again, you'll discover exactly how protective a father can be. Rudolph opened his mouth to protest, but Thomas's expression silenced him. Near the back of the room, David Chen, Rudolph's business partner, no relation, stood abruptly. For the record, our firm will be severing all ties with you, effective immediately. We'll have your personal items delivered. Other business associates nodded agreement, physically distancing themselves from Rudolph as if his disgrace were contagious. The social destruction was total, immediate, irreversible. Rudolph looked around wildly, searching for a single ally, a single sympathetic face. He found none. Even his own mother, Patricia, sat frozen at her table, unable to meet his eyes. Dina stood at the center of it all, still holding the microphone. The bride in the red dress, who had orchestrated every moment of this spectacular collapse. She had promised to reveal the truth. She had kept that promise. By 10 o'clock that night, the first videos appeared on TikTok. Guest recordings from multiple angles, the slideshow, the confrontation, Rudolph's meltdown, Wanda's tears. By midnight, number Red Dress Revenge was trending worldwide. Dina sat in her apartment, no longer their apartment, just hers now, watching her life become a global phenomenon in real time. Her phone hadn't stopped vibrating in hours. Within 24 hours, the story had accumulated 50 million views across platforms. News outlets picked it up with breathless headlines. Bride's wedding reception revenge goes viral. Woman exposes cheating groom and sister in spectacular fashion. The red dress revenge that broke the internet. Interview requests flooded in. Good Morning America, The View, every major podcast, documentary producers, international media outlets. Her email inbox became unmanageable within hours. Social media exploded with commentary. The response was overwhelming, mostly supportive. This is what empowerment looks like. She didn't let them ruin her day, she ruined theirs. The red dress was perfect, like she knew all along what was coming. Iconic. Absolutely iconic behavior. Dina became a symbol overnight, the woman who refused to be a victim, who took control of her narrative, who demanded public accountability. But the backlash came too, inevitable as sunrise. Think pieces appeared, calling her actions cruel, vindictive, public humiliation taken too far. Some argued she should have handled it privately, that exposing them was psychologically abusive. Rudolph's remaining friends mounted a defense campaign online, claiming Dina had trapped him into marriage, knowing the relationship was troubled, that she was unstable and manipulative. 3 days after the wedding, Wanda posted a tearful video apology. I made a terrible mistake. I betrayed my sister in the worst possible way. I'm so sorry. The comment section eviscerated her. You're only sorry you got caught. Crocodile tears. You betrayed her for months, and only apologize when the whole world knows. Even within their social circle, people took sides. Some friends supported Elena and Thomas's decision to stand with Dina. Others whispered that there must have been problems in the relationship already, that people don't cheat for no reason, that Dina's revenge was disproportionate. The court of public opinion had spoken, but it wasn't unanimous. Dina processed the sudden visibility with Tessa's help, unplugging for hours at a time, trying to remember who she was before she became Red Dress Revenge Girl. She agreed to one major interview with a respected journalist from a reputable publication. She told her story fully, honestly, explaining the discovery, the decision, the execution. Then she stepped back, declining all other media requests. I don't want to be defined by this moment forever, she told Tessa. It happened. It's documented. Now I need to move forward. Legal proceedings began immediately. The marriage was annulled. Dina provided evidence it was entered under fraudulent pretenses, with Rudolph actively engaged in an affair during the ceremony itself. No judge could dispute the video evidence. Wedding gifts remained with Dina. Rudolph's family didn't contest it. Rudolph threatened to sue for defamation, but his lawyers explained what Dina already knew. Truth is an absolute defense. Everything she'd revealed was documented, time-stamped, irrefutable. His business reputation crumbled. Clients distanced themselves. Professional connections evaporated. Wanda was cut off from family contact entirely. Elena delivered the message personally. When you're ready to take real accountability, not performative apologies for social media, but genuine work to understand and change, we can talk, but not before. Wanda moved out of the city within a month. Rudolph disappeared from social media entirely, his accounts deleted or abandoned, and Dina began the slow, painful work of rebuilding her life from the rubble of betrayal, one day at a time, knowing the whole world was watching. 6 months after the wedding that wasn't, Dina sat in her therapist's office, finally ready to excavate the wreckage. "You've always been a peacekeeper," Dr. Martinez observed gently. "Avoiding confrontation, prioritizing others' comfort over your own truth." Dina nodded, recognizing the pattern. The wedding revenge had been powerful, spectacular, but it had also been a breaking point for her old self. The woman who ignored red flags, who smoothed over problems, who desperately wanted everyone to be happy. That woman was gone. She learned to set boundaries in all relationships. She reconnected with friends she'd neglected during the Rudolph years, friends who'd tried to warn her, whom she'd dismissed. She threw herself into her interior design work, channeling emotion into creativity. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. That helps us tremendously. Now, let's continue. Ironically, her business grew. The viral fame brought clients who respected her strength, who wanted the woman from the red dress revenge to redesign their spaces with the same bold confidence. 1 year later, Dina attended a charity fundraiser for animal shelters. She'd adopted a rescue dog named Rosie and wanted to give back. At the silent auction table, a soft-spoken man was examining architectural sketches donated for the cause. "These are beautiful," Dina said, admiring the clean lines. "I designed them," he replied with a modest smile. "I'm James. I volunteer my services for the shelter's expansion project." They talked for 3 hours. Design philosophy, rescued animals, the ethics of adaptive reuse. Nothing about viral videos or wedding scandals. When he asked for her number, she hesitated. "I have a complicated recent past." "I know," James said simply. "I've seen the videos. That doesn't change who you are now." Their relationship developed slowly, carefully. James was patient, transparent, introduced her to his family within weeks. There were no secrets, no calculated moves. Where Rudolph had been flashy and performative, James was steady and genuine, real in a way Dina had forgotten people could be. 2 years after the red dress, Dina married James in a garden ceremony. 40 guests, only people who truly mattered. She wore simple ivory, her hair loose and natural. No grand production, no viral moment, just truth. Their vows were written together. James promised, "I promise complete honesty, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Dina promised, "I promise to trust you, but also to trust myself, to never ignore warning signs, to choose truth over comfort." Tessa, maid of honor again, gave a speech that made everyone cry. She learned that sometimes the wrong person teaches you exactly what you need to know to recognize the right one. Rudolph had released a public apology video months after the disaster rehearsed, hollow, clearly crafted by PR professionals. He'd moved to another city, attempted to rebuild his reputation. The internet didn't forget. Last Dina heard, he was engaged again. She hoped for that woman's sake he'd changed, but doubted it deeply. It wasn't her concern anymore. Wanda had been cut off for 18 months before sending a long letter. Real accountability this time, explaining how childhood jealousy had metastasized into destructive choices, how she'd started therapy, how she was trying to understand herself. Dina wasn't ready for reconciliation. Might never be. But she appreciated the honesty. Elena slowly rebuilt a relationship with Wanda, though trust would take years. The sister relationship remained severed. Some betrayals cut too deep to heal. Women still reached out to Dina, sharing their own stories of betrayal, asking for advice. She always told them the same thing. The revenge was satisfying, but the real victory was refusing to let their betrayal make me bitter. I could have closed my heart forever. Instead, I learned to open it more wisely. She had transformed completely. From someone who avoided confrontation and ignored red flags, to someone who demanded honesty and protected herself fiercely. She'd found genuine love, not the passionate fireworks of infatuation, but the steady warmth of true partnership. The bride in the red dress became a symbol not just of revenge, but of refusing to be diminished by betrayal. Dina Harrison turned the worst moment of her life into a statement. I will not be silent. I will not disappear. I will not pretend. And in doing so, she gave countless others permission to demand better, to speak truth, and to never accept less than they deserve.